Hello friends, this is your friend back with a new fanfic. What if Banished Naruto became the Emperor of the West? Episode 2. If you like this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Now, let's start. Snafu's notes. Despite the minor number of flames, the story is progressing very nicely. I'm surprised no one has picked up on the numerous references I made in the story, such as the Hall of Sovereigns, where the Imperial Council meets, that I picked up from Gears of War. The Laja Mountains, for those who grew up with Nintendo, came from Ninja Gaiden 2, the Dark Sword of Chaos. And for this chapter, I hawked in a Resident Evil 5 reference. 5 days after Kakashi's party had left for the Western Empire, the Konoha Council received an unwanted guest in the form of an envoy from Oto. Escorted by guards enhanced with the cursed seal and ready to attack at a moment's notice, Kabuto Yakushi scanned the faces of the Konoha High Council, both shinobi and civilians. The Konoha Anbu stood close by, along with several of Danzu's root Anbu, katanas drawn. The right-hand man of Orochimaru smirked to himself. Even Konoha had to follow the rules when it came to visiting diplomats, and despite being from the Sound, Kabuto was no exception to the rule. What are you doing here? Tsunade demanded from her seat. Now, Kabuto chided. There's no need to be rude, Lady Hokage. I bring greetings from your former teammate, Lord Orochimaru, as well as a message. In 3 weeks' time, Lord Orochimaru will return to Konoha, and finish what he had started, along with the Tsuchikage and the Raikage backing him up as support. In other words, this is a formal declaration of war on the leaf. The will of fire will extinguish your master. One civilian shouted. Konoha is the strongest of the shinobi nations. Kabuto scoffed. Konoha is a disease. Face it, you basically alienated each and every single ally you had when you banished your trump card. Oh, yes. Lord Orochimaru knows that you have banished the Kyuubi Jinchūriki. Because of that, no other village will come to your aid. In any case, Lord Orochimaru and his allies from Stone and Lightning are hereby giving you a chance to save your pathetic village. Orochimaru offering terms. How thoughtful of him, Tsunade sneered. Name your terms. 4 simple requests. No. Make those demands, Kabuto replied, knowing full well that Konoha would not accept the surrender offer. First off, Konoha is to surrender Sasuke Uchiha to Oto. Second, Kuma wants a Hyuga. Not one with the caged bird seal. At that, he paused so that he could face Hayashi when he told him of the demand. But one from the main branch. Your remaining daughter, Hanabi. In a rage, Hiyashi was out of his seat. You will not take my daughter. He bellowed as Sume Inuzuka, Asuma Sarutobi, and Shikaku Nara restrained him. Kabuto ignored Hiyashi's outburst. Third, Iwa wants the forbidden scroll of sealing. As it was the property of Minato Namikaze, Iwa wants the scroll so that they can destroy it, and with it the legacy of Konoha's yellow flash. And finally, Konoha must recognize the Sound as a major shinobi power, while at the same time, step down as one of the 5 major villages. With a roar, Hayashi threw off the other Junin and despite his bad leg, charged at Kabuto, who made no move as Hayashi grabbed him and was preparing to turn his brain into jelly from a Jiyuken strike. You kill me, Lord Orochimaru will find out, Kabuto threatened. Pulling down his shirt so that the shoulder is exposed, he showed Hiyashi the cursed seal, which was activated. Yes, strike me down, and you will condemn your daughter, your clan, and all of Konoha to the sword by the end of the day. With a growl, Hayashi released Kabuto, who merely adjusted his clothing. Good, Lord Hyuga. No one has to die today. To Tsunade, he said, these are our terms. The choice is yours, destruction or sacrifice. He mockingly bowed to Tsunade. You have 3 weeks to make your choice. Failure to comply, well, you know the consequences. Imperial Complex, the morning after Jiraiya's visit. Naruto was in the training hall of the Imperial Complex. He was alone. A day had passed since Jiraiya's visit and Naruto had a lot on his mind. Which is why he was meditating in the dojo at 6 in the morning. He had long since closed the book on Konoha. His life as a Konoha shinobi was long over. He was even more powerful than the Hokage, and both him and Hinata were seen as heroes to the people of the unified West. And yet, half of him wants to protect Konoha, while the other half wants to see it fall. The proverbial angel and devil were on his shoulders. Ario for your thoughts. Naruto opened his eyes. Kneeling in front of him, in his robes of state, was the Sandaime himself, Hiruzen Sarutobi. Sarutobi-sensei, Naruto whispered. You seemed troubled, the old man said. You can say that, Naruto replied. But I got to know. You knew that my father was the Yellow Flash, yet you kept that from me. Why? Hiruzen sighed. I suppose you have every right to be mad at me, Naruto. But I did it to protect you. Had Iwa found out that their most hated enemy had a son, then you would be in danger. So I had you take on your mother's last name in order to throw them off. I guess that's understandable, Naruto said, his rising anger dissipating. Dad was pretty infamous during the last shinobi war. And now you're trying to avoid a fourth shinobi war by decapitating the head of the snake, Hiruzen said. You may not be Hokage, but you are a true leader. The people here look up to you and see you as something that Konoha has failed to do, as a hero. And sometimes being a leader means you have to make the most difficult of choices. And here, I thought paperwork was bad, Naruto sniped. That's what the shadow clones are for, Hiruzen said as he lit his pipe. I wish I had figured that out sooner. You may hate Konoha, but you are still divided over what to do. Naruto nodded. I can just as easily do nothing, and let Orochimaru raise the leaf to the ground and kill everyone, or rescue the clans and grant them asylum. Shikamaru told me why the clans betrayed me and voted for the banishment. All because of Danzo. The elder Sarutobi sighed. In some cases, I agree with you. The corruption within Konoha is far too deep. Minato had planned on reforming the civilian council and to strip it of its power, but those plans had died with him when the Nine Tails attacked. You once asked me what was the will of fire. Remember what I told you. That was the life philosophy of Granny Tsunade's grandfather, Hashirama Senju, the Shadaime Hokage, Naruto replied. The will of fire states that every ninja, from the lowliest of genin to even the most experienced junin must believe, cherish and fight for the village's sake, just as their predecessors had done before them. The will of fire gives the ninja the strength to fight against overwhelming odds, while at the same time builds willpower and strength of character. It also symbolizes the hopes and dreams of the previous generation being passed on to the next. Whether you believe me or not, you are the very essence of what the Shadaime had fought for, the old man pointed out. Even when you were banished, you never lost your way. The will of fire is all but diminished in Konoha, but it lives here. It lives in the people that you have united. It lives in your wife. And it lives in you. Minato and Kushina would have been proud of you, had they lived. Naruto smiled. Thanks, old man. I know what to do now. I know that what I am doing is the right choice. Naruto opened his eyes. He was still in the training hall, but this time around, he was alone. A vision. He wondered as he rose from his kneeling position. From the look of things, he had been inside the training hall for an hour. That and his knees were sore. Hinata and Katami would be awake soon and today was an important day. Hall of Sovereigns, Imperial Capital. Naruto Namikaze sat at the head of the table. Hinata Namikaze sat at his left, while Iwa was on his right. Katami sat next to Hinata. The gathered council members sat at their usual positions, only with a slight difference. Seated on the left side was the Suna representative, Tamari. Sister to the Kazekage Gaara and Kankuro, she was chosen by Gaara to act as Suna's representative while in the West. The Suna consulate was located several blocks away from the imperial palace and was guarded by a garrison of Suna ninja. On the right side, was the adopted brother of the Mizukage, Takeshi Terumi. Takeshi was a former ninja who was forced to retire due to injury. The Mist consulate was located on the same block as the Suna consulate, and guarded by a garrison of Mist ninja as well. As part of the alliance with both Mist and Suna, the Imperial Empire also had two consulates set up in both villages. The imperial representatives were hand-picked by the emperor himself. So far, none in the east knew about the secret alliance between the three of them. Aside from the Imperial Council, Naruto had requested that the Jinchūriki, save for Gaara, who is still in Suna, should be present for this meeting. Standing before the Emperor and the Imperial Council were the 6 jinchūriki which Naruto had rescued. First up was Yugito Ni, container to the two-tailed monster cat, formerly of Kumo, and commander of the elite all-female fighting force known as the Hellcat Unit. Because of Naruto's actions years earlier, she was his biggest supporter, as well as having fought alongside him during the Unification Wars. Her base of operations was in the imperial capital. Next to Yugito, was Roshi, former Iwa ninja and container to the four-tailed monkey, and his partner, the brooding Han, also from Iwa and the container to the five-tailed dolphin horse. Imagine their shock that the young emperor who had saved them from a gruesome fate was the son of Iwa's most hated enemy. But once Naruto had told them his story of how he came to be the emperor, the older men could easily sympathize with his plight. And given the choice of trusting the son of the Yellow Flash or facing certain death at the hands of the Akatsuki, the two ex-Iwa ninja chose the former. After all, the old saying that the enemy of my enemy is my friend does ring true. While Han made his home in the Lajja Mountains, he serves as a guardian for one of the mountain towns there. Roshi was the leader of a shinobi village in the southern region, training and practicing his arts. Next to Han were Utakata, former missing ninja from Mist and Jinchūriki to the six-tailed slug, and Fu, formerly of Waterfall and the container to the seven-tailed horned beetle. While Fu worked with the Empire's spy network, Utakata had decided on a more peaceful life, training his student, Hotato. Utakata had fought Naruto once when he was younger, but even he owed the Emperor his life for saving him from the Akatsuki. Fu, on the other hand, was the only member of the Jinchūriki to seek the Emperor out, having enough of her hellish life back in Waterfall. She found him in Suna, where he was a guest of Gaara while Suna hosted the Chunin exams, and requested that he take her with him. Naruto agreed. Last, was A's brother, Killer Bee, the Jinchūriki to the eight-tailed giant ox. While A served as Naruto's senior advisor, B was assigned to look after the trading town of Rara, located at the base of the Lajja Mountains. Like his brother, B owed Naruto big time for saving both their lives. Following Jiraiya's visit the previous day, Naruto had convened an emergency meeting of the Council and of the Jinchūriki, nicknamed the Imperial Six. Unlike the East, the Jinchūriki were seen as genuine heroes, protectors of the people, something that was foreign to Han and Fu, given their past experiences back home. But they warmed up to their new status of protector instead of pariah. For the past year and a half, Naruto and Hinata had come up with a plan to neutralize both Konoha and Orochimaru without destabilizing the East. Using Hinata's original plan as the base, Naruto and Hinata had added onto it. The spy network inside Earth and Wind Country was quite useful in gaining information in regards to the movements of Kumo and Iwa's shinobi forces. Orochimaru did not step foot out of Oto, leaving his right-hand man to act as proxy. Apparently, the snake was occupied with burning Konoha to the ground once and for all, and dismissed the Pakara merchants as a threat, allowing them to conduct their business in peace. That would prove to be his fatal flaw. It was shortly after their first wedding anniversary that word came from the Pakara branch in Earth Country. A new Tsuchikage was in power, and he too was a puppet ruler, Orochimaru pulling the strings from behind the scenes. Fu herself had verified the reports and passed them on to both Roshi and Han. The two jinchūriki had respected Onoki a great deal and were outright furious upon hearing of him. With the death of Onoki, Roshi and Han's last known link to Iwa was destroyed. The plan was then revised when it became clear that Orochimaru had two powerful shinobi nations under his control. The way to stability became clear for Naruto and Hinata: sabotage the fragile alliance between Orochimaru and the two villages. If Orochimaru was killed in the ensuing crossfire, it would be a bonus. Naruto brought the meeting to order. Council members, Representatives Subaku and Terumi, fellow jinchūriki. I thank you for coming on such short notice. So what's the problem, sire? Lady Ahara asked. Yeah, Chief, Eiji Kibagami said. You got all of us up here cooling our heels. That earned him an elbow to the side from the Chiba clan head. An old acquaintance of mine has passed on grave news. There is war brewing in the elemental countries, a 3-on-1 attack on Konoha. The reports I've received from Kumo and Iwa have all but verified it. Konoha. Lady Ahara parroted. The same place that has banished you. If anything, you should just let the place burn for the slights against you. Even a blind man can see that you are not the Nine Tails Reborn. Otherwise, you would have long since destroyed that place. The other members nodded at her statement. Believe me when I say that the thought crossed my mind, Naruto replied mildly, but my source told me that I owe my life to the Fire Lord, as he was the one who stopped the Konoha Council from placing me into the bingo book, as well as sending Hunter Ninja after me. That I already know, since the Fire Lord told me himself, but he remained silent as to who was the one who kept me out of the book. No, my main concern is our allies in Suna and Mist. They may be dragged into this war against Kumo, Oto and Iwa. But my brother is not allied to Konoha, Temari pointed out. Not after what they had done to you. Why would Oto, Kumo and Iwa attack Suna? You of all people know that the snake is petty, and will not let grudges go, Hinata explained. That and since Suna despises Orochimaru for killing your father, Orochimaru may try and destroy Suna before it can ally itself with Konoha. Temari knew exactly what he was talking about. You think that the hubby would attack Suna before moving on to Konoha as payback for botching the invasion 8 years ago. If I was him, I would, Naruto replied. I'll send word to Gaara and tell him to be on his guard. The same with Terumi as well. If the snake attacks either one of them, then our consulates will be in danger. Excuse me, sire, but who is this snake you are talking about? Ryuji Shinzen asked. Naruto replied by creating a shadow clone in the middle of the room and placing it under a henge to make it look like Orochimaru. This is the person who is spearheading the invasion, the snake sage, Orochimaru. One of the 3 legendary sages, the others being the Toad Sage, Jiraiya and the Slug Sage, and current Godime Hokage, Tsunade Senju. All 3 trained under my mentor, the late Sandaime Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, but Orochimaru held the most promise. He was also the most corrupt of the 3. Sarutobi found out that Orochimaru was conducting illegal experiments involving the cursed seal, as well as trying to find the secrets to immortality. Orochimaru escaped, and after a brief stint as part of the Akatsuki, seized control of Oto and Rice Field Country, changing the name to Sound. The Emperor paused for a moment. This man killed Sarutobi during the Chunin exams 8 years ago. Every 3 years, he needs a new body in order to live forever. With the snake, it's always personal for him. He may have either Iwa or Kumo attack Suna and Mist to knock them out of the war before moving on to Konoha. The snake has a plan, V said. Forget destroying Konoha. He wants to rule the eastern land. That could be a possibility, Han said, stroking his chin in deep thought. He could also subjugate the smaller villages like Rain or Waterfall to his side. Given the fact that most of us are either shunned or have death sentences on our heads, Orochimaru can also see us as a threat. You're thinking about going to war, aren't you? Sanshi asked. Not to save Konoha, Naruto replied. I was thinking of something a bit more subtle. As you already know, I have a prior agreement with Tsunade Senju, as she is not only my godmother, but also the granddaughter of my great-grandmother, Mito Uzumaki. I will not save Konoha. I will cripple it by other means, while at the same time, eliminate the threat of Odo without raising a sword. Iwa and Kumo may have puppet cages that answer to Orochimaru, but the alliance is still a weak one at best, Hinata continued. The Cloud and the Stone have always been bitter rivals, but are only united in their hatred towards the Leaf. Our original plan was to in fact unleash Katami upon Konoha to finish what she had started, but after what we had learned in regards to my husband's banishment, we decided on a second course of action. Which is? Lady Ahara prodded. Operation Susanoo's Wrath, Naruto replied. In the Pakara branch of both Earth and Lightning Country are two sleeper cells consisting of members from Zabuza's Demon Brigade and Yugito's Hellcat unit. On my command, the cells will attack both Iwa and Kumo in a sneak attack designed to eliminate the senior members of Iwa and Kumo without eliminating the cages themselves. It was a protocol which Naruto and Hinata had been planning on ever since the Suna Akatsuki War. They knew that Orochimaru was a threat to the region and both had planned accordingly. Using the spy network in the east, they had gotten detailed accounts of Iwa and Kumo's shinobi forces. It's a brilliant stroke of genius, if I may say so myself, Yugito added with pride in her voice. The cell in Earth Country will be disguised as Kumo Ninja and the cell in Lightning will be disguised as Iwa Ninja. Kibagami put the dots together. And when the shit hits the fan, one side will blame the other. And Orochimaru can't hold the alliance together if the two villages end up fighting each other, he guffawed. And you hope that Odo would be either wiped out and Orochimaru killed, or crippled to the point that he would never be a serious threat. He cackled. You were always a sneaky little shit, Chief. Glad to see you haven't lost your touch. Coming from you, I'll take that as a compliment, Naruto replied, used to the older samurai's foul-mouthed tendencies. This, coming from the same guy that came up with a thoughtful, albeit crude description about his wife's demeanor. The only thing bigger than her tits is her heart. That comment earned him a whack on the head by Kasumi Ahara. What about Konoha? Haruka Shinzen asked. I've been in contact with the fire daimyo and he agrees with me. The village is beyond hope, beyond saving, Naruto replied. As per our agreement with Senju, I will allow the shinobi clans and any ninja that support the Godime Asylum within the empire. Someone once said that no one is beyond redemption. I will put that to the test. Hayate Okajima rubbed his chin. And by allowing a sizable number of ninja to resettle here would all but cripple Konoha's ninja forces overall. Maybe to the point that they would no longer be recognized as a hidden village. He smiled. Boss, have I ever told you I like how you think? Actually, the idea of offering the Konoha Ninja Asylum was her idea, Naruto said, gesturing to Hinata. I can't take credit for something my wife has done. He pulled out a second report. One of General Kazuma's men stationed at the Pakara merchant house in the fire capital had sent this to me. Orochimaru has sent in an envoy to Konoha to negotiate terms of surrender to Konoha, led by his right-hand man, Kabuto Yakushi. Now would be a good time to strike, Sanshi suggested. While the envoy is away, you should give the order. There's no need to, Naruto replied. I gave the order yesterday. Operation Susanoo's Wrath will be executed as per our orders come midnight, when the Unification Festival concludes. The spy network has gotten the routines of both Iwa and Kumo down to a T. After all, no one will ever suspect the Empire of pulling off such a feat. Is there any other business? Katami asked. There was none. We will see all of you at the Unification Ball, Hinata said. You are dismissed. The council and the jinchūriki piled out of the room. Naruto and Hinata remained behind, the former thinking about his encounter with Jiraiya. Flashback. Hall of Sovereigns, the previous day. If anyone was present, they would have seen the Emperor of the Western Empire on the floor, laughing his off at the fact that Jiraiya was 1 second away from having a heart attack for being in the same room as the Kyuubi no Kitsune. Hinata, in the meantime, looked amused at her husband's antics, as well as the fact that the Toad Sage was about to have a coronary. The 9 tails. Jiraiya managed to get out. How did you get out of the seal? Easy. The kid here broke it, Katami replied, giving the man a fanged grin. She then turned to Naruto, who had finally gotten himself under control. Good thing that the room had a soundproof seal, otherwise anyone who had entered would have been greeted with the sight of the Western Emperor laughing his head off. You okay there, kid? You almost made pervy Sage shit his pants, Naruto cackled. Naruto, you know that this is the 9-tailed demon fox, right? Jiraiya said cautiously. The same 9 tails that turned Konoha into its personal stomping grounds. The 1-year-old man sealed inside of you. Of course I know, Naruto replied, rising to his feet. He dusted himself off and took his seat. And for the record, the tailed beasts are not demons, as most people would think. As one would think, Katami is the most powerful of the Biju. She, along with several others, helped me in my quest of unifying the continent. The people here know about my past in Konoha and do not treat me like a monster. What do you know about Madara Uchiha? Katami asked the older man. Madara Uchiha. Jiraiya repeated. The same Madara who had fought Tsunade's grandfather for the position of Hokage. I thought he was dead. Katami shook her head. Hardly, she replied mildly. At least until 2 years ago. Madara was the leader of the Akatsuki. A sadistic smile crept across her face. That is until I tore out his heart and destroyed his eyes. It was because of his hatred that Madara had brainwashed me into attacking Konoha in an attempt to destroy it. Prior to that, Kushina Uzumaki was the jinchūriki. Seeing as how Jiraiya was paling visibly at Katami's sadism, Naruto gave Jiraiya the entire story, with Hinata and Katami putting in their 2 cents. Naruto told Jiraiya about the first jinchūriki to the 10-tailed beast, the 6-path sage, and of Naruto's connection to the Senju, to how upon his death, he split the power of the 10 tails into the 9 jinchūriki and left the 10 tails body on the moon. Katami continued where Naruto had left off, about how the Akatsuki were hunting down the jinchūriki in Madara's Eye of the Moon plan, and it was Nato who had reached out to his fellow jinchūriki, offering them protection and asylum from the Akatsuki, save for Gaara, who was the Kazakage which led to the Akatsuki's full-scale invasion of Suna. While Katami was credited with killing Madara, Naruto was the one who had killed Itachi Uchiha, Sasuke's older brother, and had decimated Nagato, while Hinata had killed Deidara. Half of Suna was left in ruins, but in the end, all of the members of Akatsuki were wiped out. Jiraiya was impressed. Very impressed. Minato, if you had seen what your son has done, he thought wistfully. He is truly a leader. He then decided to get back on topic. Naruto, about Konoha. My answer still stands, Jiraiya. I will not aid Konoha, nor will I outright destroy it, but I will not give Orochimaru the pleasure of destroying it either, Naruto replied. But you just said. I know what I said. You didn't let me finish. I will not let Orochimaru destroy Konoha. I will simply cripple it instead. But, why? What would Tsunade say if she knew about this? Naruto smiled. Tsunade supports the idea, as does the Fire Lord. Jiraiya blinked. Huh. Only 3 other people know that I am the Emperor, aside from you. The Fire Lord, Granny Tsunade and Shikamaru. The slacker. How did they find out? And Naruto told him how they stumbled upon Naruto's identity in the wake of the failed Akatsuki invasion of Suna. how no one would suspect Shikamaru is Naruto's inside man, and of how Danzo, Koharu, Hanmura, Asuna and Hayashi had orchestrated Naruto's banishment through bribery and blackmail. That pretty much made Jiraiya very angry. Naruto had never seen the super perv angry. But Jiraiya looked pissed enough to summon Gambunta and the rest of the toads and raise Konoha himself. And just how do you plan on dealing with Konoha and Orochimaru? Jiraiya asked. By turning Iwa and Kumo against one another and fracturing Orochimaru's alliance, Hinata replied. If they end up killing Orochimaru, then that's a bonus. Second, we allow the shinobi clans and any Chunin or Junin that support Tsunade Asylum into the west, therefore crippling Konoha's shinobi force. And the Fire Lord. As it turns out, the Fire Lord has been making some plans of his own. He sees that Konoha is not worth saving. Once the exodus is complete, he will notify the Leaf that he will strip them of their remaining financial aid and strip them of their hidden village status. The Fire Lord has been secretly constructing a new hidden village near the capital for the past 5 years and is actively recruiting shinobi and civilians alike, mostly refugees and mercenary ninja looking for a new home. This time, he is making sure that the civilians do not get themselves involved in shinobi matters. And Konoha does not know about this. They will soon find out, after the Fire Lord notifies them of the change, Hinata said. The corruption in Konoha is too deep. This is the only way it can be stopped, by stripping it of its so-called honor and allowing a new breed of ninja to defend Fire Country. Clans hand-picked personally by the Fire Lord himself. Missed refugees with bloodlines, ninjas from defunct villages, mercenary ninjas and even samurai looking for a permanent home, the like, Naruto said. As long as they swear loyalty to the Fire Lord and follow the law, they can stay. I knew things were bad. Jiraiya shook his head. Do you have a timetable for when Tsunade will arrive with the others? I told her to wait 3 days after I dealt with Orochimaru and his alliance, then resign the seat of Hokage, Naruto replied. By that time, I will be ready to get the clans out of Fire Country. The Fire Daimyo's given us a 14-day window for the clans and ninja to make it to Wave Country, more than enough time. What about Kabuto? Jiraiya asked. Same as Orochimaru. He's also a credible threat, Naruto replied. Sooner or later, he will have to be dealt with. But first, we must cut off the head of the snake. My informants in the east have notified me that Kabuto is on his way to Konoha to deliver Orochimaru's ultimatum. By that time, the 2 sleeper cells in Earth and Lightning will strike. And you made sure that no one will suspect the Empire? Jiraiya asked, concerned with the risk that the Emperor and his wife were taking. Positive, Naruto replied. The sleeper cells are special Junin-level ninja, whose specialties are Genjutsu, Earth and Lightning Jutsu. All are veterans of the Unification Wars and they have been briefed on their mission. He smiled meanly. They can and will wipe the floor with Danzo and his root Anbu. That's tough, huh? Hinata nodded. Very. By the time of the Unification Festival, Orochimaru will no longer be a threat, and soon, Konoha will fall. End flashback. Jiraiya had left Kimen City to prepare, leaving Naruto and Hinata to oversee the final preparations for Susanoo's wrath. Once everything was in place, the order was given, Hinata using a fox summon to deliver the classified messages to the sleeper cells in Earth and Lightning. Now, all they had to do was wait. Most of the day went by with Naruto and Hinata going through their paperwork for the rest of the morning, followed by lunch in the town. The unified West were in the final preparations of the Unification Festival. On a boat, en route to the Western Empire. The Konoha team led by Captain Kakashi Hatake and Captain Kurenai Sarutobi traveled for 3 days, crossing the bridge into Wave Country. There, while in Wave, Kakashi received a cold reception from Tazuma and his family when Kakashi greeted them. Tazuma refused to allow them to enter his home, slamming the door in Kakashi's face. Come to think of it, the people of Wave Town were cold to them, as they were the first to drop their trade agreement with Konoha once their debt for the mission was paid. Dejected, but not deterred, Kakashi and the others boarded a Pakara merchant vessel heading for the west. After a brief layover in Tea Country, where the crew picked up supplies and tourists for the trip home, they were on their way to the west. It would be 4 more days before they would reach the imperial capital. The Konoha team only knew about the emperor from either second-hand knowledge or from when Tsunade had ordered them to bring him in for questioning. He was a skilled fighter, as most of the ninja who had fought him could attest to that fact. And given that there were branches of the Pakara merchant houses in most of the villages, save for Konoha, but rather at the fire capital, the emperor was very savvy when it came to business agreements. They had been out on missions before, but never this one of such great importance. No one in their group has ventured out of the elemental countries and into the west, and for good reason. But now, things had changed, as they were on a mission of great importance. Of course, sneaking in was a bad idea, but Kakashi took nothing to chance. The imperial capital loomed in the distance. The sun was starting to set as Kakashi and the others gazed in awe over the thriving port. Attention! We will be docking in 30 minutes, the first mate shouted as he moved along the deck. Upon docking, you will be asked to produce identification, so have your ID cards out and ready. Anyone who does not comply will be taken to jail for the night, and you will be sent back east the following morning. Let's not get arrested tonight, people, it looks very bad on my record. Kakashi Hatake was on deck, standing at the ship's bow, watching as the port drew ever closer. He was already in disguise, dressed as a tourist. He was unmasked, his Hitai-8 gone, the Sharingan eye covered with a headband. The others are getting prepared, Kurenai said as she approached Kakashi from behind. Like Kakashi, she was also dressed incognito. Her hair was pulled back into a ponytail, while she used a genjutsu to change her eye color from red to brown. I never told anyone this, but I screwed up big time, Kakashi confessed. Being in the Anbu is a lot easier than taking on a squad of genin. Obito and Minato-sensei would be ashamed as to how my team ended up. So what caused this change? Kurenai asked, curious. After we had left from Suna. Sasuke and Anko were both right. I am in, Kakashi admitted. After returning back to Konoha, I had time to think about Naruto. And to tell you the truth, we did abandon him. I guess it took more than enough time to realize that I royally screwed up by focusing solely on Sasuke instead of the entire team. I just hope that we do see him again, if only to apologize for how I treated him, how we threw him away. The copycat ninja sighed. At least your team came out somewhat okay. Hinata's stronger from what I have heard about her encounters with her former clan, despite being labeled a missing nin. Kiba's on his way to becoming a special Junin, and Shino's expertise in Rakan and medicine is the best I've ever seen. And look at my team. Sakura's a certified sociopath, Sasuke hasn't spoken to me ever since the Suna Akatsuki War, and Naruto was banished for doing his job. Can't say that I haven't gotten out of this unscathed, Kurenai said. You were there when Konohamaru abandoned the village for Suna. Asuma took it pretty hard. In his mind, he sees this as failing Konohamaru's parents and the Sandaime. She looked out at the approaching port. If you ask my personal opinion about this, Konoha has fallen from grace for what they had done to Uzumaki. That kid was a hero, not the Fox Reborn. He didn't deserve to get screwed over the way he did. If he is here in the Empire, maybe we can see him again, to apologize for what we had done. From below deck, Ino, Kiba, Shino and Shikamaru emerged. Unlike the elder Junin, the younger ninjas simply removed their Junin flak vests and Hitai Ateshin used several sealing scrolls to hide them. Everyone ready? Kurenai asked. The younger ninja nodded, while Akamaru barked. The boat made its way into port. Once the boat was secured and the crew began to remove their cargo, the passengers disembarked. Walking up the harbor, they reached the gates that would allow them to enter into Kimen. However, as with Konoha, there were guards at the gates. One was immediately identified as a ninja, given by his flak vest, while the other was a samurai. The ninja was older than his counterpart, and the two men were chatting with each other as Kakashi and the others approached. The ninja saw them coming. Caravan, citizen, pilgrim, tourist or. Kakashi did the talking. We're tourists from the east. We heard from some of our friends who had visited here before that the West is a pretty nice place for a vacation, and since our boss has given us some time off, we decided to come and visit, check out the sights. The ninja chuckled. Well, you guys came at the right time. You guys showed up during the week-long Unification Festival. We're celebrating the unification of the northern and southern regions of the unified West. As for attractions, we got a couple in the north. If you like to gamble, there's North Lajia Town about 70 miles from here. The Lajia Mountains also have a nice hot springs resort. Then there's the Dragon Temple and gardens in the city, and the Imperial Palace. In the southern region, if you plan on staying that long, we hold an annual martial arts tournament in South Ichiyama. And there's the Tears Point Memorial. What's the Emperor like? Kurenai asked. For someone so young, he rules with great wisdom and patience, the samurai replied. He is skilled in the samurai arts as well as in the arts of ninjutsu. Aside from being a skilled fighter and master tactician, he is also a brilliant politician, charismatic and at the same time, cunning like a fox. We have been blessed to have such rulers, both the emperor and his wife, the empress consort. The emperor is married? Shino asked. Yes. They've been married for 2 years now. His wife was originally from the east as well, the samurai replied. A former heiress who was forsaken by her clan. She's nicknamed, the Lady of War, given how she is a trained ninja who fought alongside the emperor during the Suna Akatsuki War. Beautiful, but deadly. Then there's the Prime Minister, the ninja replied. She's been with him ever since the Unification War, a red-headed woman with green eyes. She also trained the Empress consort in the 6 months before their wedding. Both the Emperor and Empress consort trust her with their lives. The Prime Minister herself is a skilled fighter and answers directly to the Emperor and Empress. Can anyone gain an audience with the Emperor? Ino asked. You can try, but it's not going to happen, the samurai said. But he does come down to the city for the festival. One thing about the emperor is that he may be the ruler of the unified West, that doesn't stop him from having a good time with the common folk. But enough talk, can I see some identification before I can let you pass? Kakashi and the others handed their ID to the ninja. The ninja took down their names and handed them back to them. Upon asking for a map of Kimen City, the samurai produced one and handed it to Kurenai. Welcome to the unified West, and enjoy your stay, the ninja said cheerfully. Once Kakashi and the others were gone, the samurai went to perform another identification check on another visitor. The ninja, on the other hand, turned to a figure that was hiding in the shadows. General Kazuma, of the Shadow Company. The ninja, himself a member of the Shadow Company, excused himself and walked over to Kazuma. Report, the commander ordered calmly. Sir, 6 Konoha ninjas posing as tourists have just entered the city, the ninja replied. He had worked at the Imperial Consulate in Fire Country and had recognized the ninja instantly, as the spy network in Fire Country kept detailed files on Konoha's finest. Kazuma nodded. Good work. I will inform the emperor and his consort. Return to your post. The ninja bowed and returned to his duties, while Kazuma sank into the shadows. Imperial Complex, Hall of Sovereigns. Hinata Namikaze was on her way to the visitor's room, where her husband was already entertaining Yukie Fujika's. The reason why she was running late was because she had a sparring session with a clone that had lasted a bit longer than expected. After a quick shower, Hinata was clad in a fresh indigo-colored ninja uniform, think Ayane's C1 from Dead or Alive 4, and was walking down the corridor. Lady Hinata. Hinata stopped and turned around. Kazuma rose from the shadows. General Kazuma, Hinata greeted with a nod of her head. What is it? There is a squad of Konoha ninja posing as tourists in the city, Kazuma replied. Hinata's eyes went wide. Konoha ninja. Here in the capital. Kazuma nodded. It has been confirmed by one of my ninja at the harbor. 7 in total, all Junin level ninja. He then gave the Empress consort detailed descriptions on the ninjas' appearances. Hinata nodded. I will notify my husband of this matter. Thank you, Kazuma. Kazuma bowed and decided to remain on standby for further orders. Inside the visitor's room. So the Toad Sage decided to drop by for a visit. Koyuki Kazuhana asked as she sipped on her glass of Western red wine. The spring daimyo, known by her screen name Yukie Fujikaze, was a frequent visitor to the imperial complex whenever she had time away from running Spring Country and working as an actress. I sure hope you didn't try and kill him, Naruto. The thought crossed my mind, Naruto replied mildly as he sipped on his own wine. But he's still alive. That's good to hear, Yukie replied. I would hate to see him die, after he convinced me to star in his Ika Ika movie. Naruto looked at the older woman as if she had grown a second head. Jiraiya did what? He convinced me to take the lead role for Ika Ika Paradise, the movie, Yukie repeated. Why? Is there something wrong? You have no idea, do you? What? That Jiraiya is some kind of pervert. No, Naruto replied. Once Yukie calmed down, Naruto dropped the hammer. He is a super pervert. His favorite hobbies include peeping inside the women's baths and checking out the hot springs. My personal nickname to him was Pervy Sage. Yukie raised an eyebrow. You're joking, right? I wish I was, Naruto replied. So, you and Hinata have been married for 2 years, and yet, you have no kids. Naruto sputtered on his wine. Yukie. That's personal. The spring daimyo grinned. Just remember. I call dibs on being the child's godmother. Yeah, Naruto grumbled just as Hinata entered the room. Almost immediately, Naruto caught the look on her face. Nada. What's wrong? Kazuma reports that a 6-man squad of Junin ninja from Konoha has entered the capital, Hinata said. Crunch. Yukie winced as she saw Naruto crush the wineglass in his hand, spilling wine all over his pants and onto the floor. Then she gasped. Konoha ninja. Here. Who are they? Naruto demanded. Kurenai Sarutobi, Kakashi Hatake, Kiba Inuzuka, Shikamaru Nara, Ino Yamanaka and Shino Aburame. Oh, and Akamaru, the former Hyuga reported. In an instant, Naruto summoned Kazuma. The Shadow Company commander entered the room. Yes, Chief. Who is in Kimin City at the moment? General Ni and a squad of her Hellcats are present, as is General Mamachi, Kazuma replied. Inform them of the situation and have them escort the Konoha ninja here, Naruto ordered. Kazuma bowed. Right away, Chief. Kazuma quickly departed from the room. Then Naruto looked at the shattered glass in his hand. Ow. The imperial capital was bustling with activity. Not even Konoha had such a thriving nightlife, not even during the Kyubi festival. As the 2 port guards had explained, it was the tail end of the week-long Unification Festival. As the team from Konoha took in the sights, they saw that this place wasn't as much different from Konoha, from the shops to the manner of dress. Even the money was the same. The only difference was that there were patrols of samurai and ninja in the streets. Squads of 2, sometimes 3. They even identified ninjas by the same style of flak vests. You hardly even see samurai back in the East, Ino noted. Kakashi nodded. The last shinobi war wiped out most of them. What's left is now in the Iron Country. The same thing could happen here. But from what I can tell, Even our most seasoned Junin and Anbu units would have a hard time eliminating these samurai. If the imperial forces are capable of destroying the Akatsuki, then they would be invaluable to Konoha as allies. Kurenai nodded as well. I can sense their chakra. Very strong indeed. Akamaru, in the meantime, was whining softly. The large dog did not like the crowded streets. Kiba patted the dog on his back. Don't worry, boy. The crowd is thinning out, he said, reassuring the dog. So what's the plan? Kurenai asked as Kakashi looked at the map. We found a hotel for the night, Kakashi explained. Then we head for the Imperial Palace and see if we can gain an audience with the Emperor. Kurenai nodded. Then she felt her senses going haywire. Kakashi sensed it as well. Rapid movement, both from the rooftops and on the ground, coming in fast. 5 kunoichi, armed with steel ninjutsu and kunais and clad in the standard ninja uniform with khaki flak vests, similar in design of the same type of vests that Konoha uses, landed and surrounded the Konoha ninja, who quickly got into a defensive stance. As the civilians backed away, 5 Onna Bugaisha, female samurai, rushed in, katanas drawn. Like their ninja counterparts, they also wore the flak vests which identified them as the Hellcats, the all-female fighting force under the command of Yugito Ni. Stay where you are. One of the Hellcats shouted, ready for anything. Kiba growled and was preparing to fight his way out, when Ino stopped him. Kiba, no. Fighting will only make things worse, she warned. We're here for an alliance, not to make war. Kiba understood, and backed down. 2 of the ninja parted, allowing the commander of the Hellcats to step through. Blonde hair, brown eyes, mean expression. There was no Hittite identifying her, as she needed none. She was dressed like the others, save that her flak vest was solid black. The 2 women who had parted for their commander closed ranks again. Kurenai recognized the woman almost immediately. Yugito Ni, of Kumogakure no Sato. Jinchūriki to the 2 tails. Looks like the Emperor is friends with Kumo. Yugito nodded. And you are Kurenai Uehi. My reputation precedes me. I am honored. However, you are mistaken. I no longer serve the cloud. My loyalty is with the Emperor. Make one wrong move, Konoha ninja, and my Hellcats will rip you to shreds. At that declaration, the captured ninja's eyes went wide. Not because of Yugito's threat, but they knew that they were from Konoha, and that they were caught. It was then, Kakashi received a second shock. The copycat ninja felt something sharp on his neck. Looking down, his eyes widened as he recognized the blade. Well. If it isn't copycat Hitaki. Looks like the boss was right. This is my lucky day. Kakashi's eyes went wide. The owner of the blade was none other than Zabuza Mamachi, former mist swordsman, thought to have been dead back in Wave, was alive, and had Kakashi at sword point. Zabuza, you're alive, Kakashi muttered. How? For a ninja who tells others to look underneath the meanings, you sure are dense, Zabuza said. Let's just say that I knew that Runt Gato was going to betray Haku and me, so I had a little insurance policy in the form of a blood clone. He grinned maniacally. You and I have some unfinished business, Hitaki. Before Yugito could reprimand her bloodthirsty comrade, a third party made their appearance. Emerging from the ground by way of the gathered shadows, was the general of Shadow Company, Hideo Kazuma. At that moment, the villagers knew that if the head of the Shadow Company was involved, then usually, it meant bad news for the offending party. It's a member of the Shadow Company, the eyes and ears of the Emperor, here, in this town, what are they doing here? At that moment, a wave of demonic killer intent washed over the warriors present, both Imperial and from Konoha. For the ninja of the leaf, especially to Kakashi and Kurenai, it felt awfully familiar. With a roar, the nine-tailed fox made its grand entrance in a geyser of flame, standing next to the seeker. Instead of her normal size, the most powerful of the beasts was around Akamaru's size, if not bigger. Most surprising was the fact that the townspeople did not run away screaming in terror at the sight of the nine tails. The Hellcats stood at attention and bowed, as did Yugito and Zabuza. Kyuubi-sama, Yugito greeted. The ninja from Konoha have been apprehended, as per the Emperor's orders. The massive fox nodded. Good work. Then the nine tails turned to the petrified leaf ninja. Just like you Konoha scum, the nine tails sneered. You have a very bad habit of coming into places where you are not wanted. Kiba was the first to get back his voice. Oh yeah. What's it to you demon? Or would you rather be called Naruto? Now you done it, Zabuza muttered as he inched to the side. Even he knew better than to raise the ire of the vixen, as he had learned the hard way. As the townspeople wondered what the idiot was saying, Katami quickly reacted. One massive tail lashed forward, catching the dog ninja by the throat and lifting him into the air. Kiba! Kurenai shouted helplessly as she watched her former pupil being hanged from the air. Then the Konoha ninja watched as the nine tails transformed from a demonic-looking fox to a shapely woman with long red hair tied into a single braid, and clad in a crimson ninja uniform with black trim, alla dead or alive's Kasumi, and sandals. A black fox's head was on the back of the uniform. Her eyes were still red, as the tails snaked around her form. This is the only time I will tell you this, you little mutt, so pay attention, Katami snarled. The kid and I are not one and the same. We are completely separate entities. Just like you people to get the jailer mixed up with the prisoner, she concluded as she slammed Kiba to the ground, the dog lover bouncing on the hard street once upon impact. From the sidelines, Zabuza winced. That's gotta hurt. As Ino rushed to heal the bruised Kiba, Katami willed the tails away, her eyes shifting from a demonic red to emerald green. Despite this, Katami still had an angry look on her face. Under any other circumstances, I would kill you where you stand. However, the Emperor and Empress Consort wants all of you alive and in one piece when I bring you to them. Any resistance from any one of you, and I'll let Zabuza have his fun. The Konoha envoy gulped. Despite it being the wrong reasons, they had gained an audience with the Emperor and his wife. The only problem was whether or not they would survive the encounter. Katami turned to Kazuma. Inform the Emperor and Empress Consort that we will arrive with the Konoha ninja momentarily. Once Kazuma was gone, Yugito had her Hellcats escort the captured ninja to the Imperial Complex. On the way, the Konoha ninja passed the Suna and Mist consulates, of which were easily identified by the ninja guarding the compounds, as well as the flags of their respective villages that were flying from the entrance. Following the pathway out of the city, the group reached the Imperial Complex, the nerve center of the unified West. Beautiful, yet intimidating. The guards bowed to Katami, to which she replied with a single nod. Turning towards the House of Sovereigns, the Nine Tails led the prisoners and their guards there. It didn't take too long for the group to reach their destination. Beyond the wooden double doors was the throne room. The doors themselves were guarded by a samurai guard, who bowed their heads in respect to the Biju Queen. The Emperor and Empress Consort will arrive shortly, Lady Akashiya, one of the samurai said. Katami nodded and turned around. Zabuza, Yugito, you are no longer needed. The rest of you Hellcats remain here. Once Yugito and Zabuza disappeared, Katami turned to the Konoha ninja. Watch what you say around the Emperor and his wife, she warned, which was directed to Kiba and Ino. The throne room's guards opened the doors and the Konoha ninja were ushered inside. Katami walked up the steps and stood beside and behind the throne on the left. At the far end of the throne room, the doors opened and in stepped the most powerful couple in the Western Empire. His clothes stained with the wine from earlier, Naruto had changed into his black vest, pants and boots. He wore no shirt underneath, which showed off his muscular arms. The black cage-style hat was on his head. Only this time, there was no mask to conceal his face. Hinata was at his side, looking at the gathered ninja with genuine disgust. The Konoha ninja were in shock, especially Kurenai, Shino and Kiba. Hinata was the wife to the most powerful man in the empire, the Akatsuki killer himself. Husband and wife sat down on their thrones. Even after 8 years, the leaf continues to mock us by sending you here, Naruto said, his voice hard enough to cut steel. He looked at the prisoners that stood before him and Hinata. Kakashi Hatake. Kurenai Sarutobi. Shino Aburame. Ino Yamanaka. Kiba Inuzuka, and Shikamaru Nara. 2 special Junin and 4 members of the Konoha 11. He turned to his wife. Or should the number be 6? Isn't this the little reunion between old friends, Haim? And here I thought they would be happy to see us. Now Kakashi was puzzled. Us? What do you mean by us? Naruto raised one hand to his hat and removed it from his head, allowing the article to fall to the ground. So slow to catch on, Hatake. Kurenai's eyes widened in total shock, as did Kakashi. For a moment, the elder Junin thought that they were looking at Minato Namikaze himself. Minimum. Minato-sensei. Kakashi whispered. Naruto shook his head. I am not my father. I am the one Konoha had thrown away. He looked at Kakashi. Remember what you said to me the day I was banished following the retrieval of the Uchiha. I most certainly do, as you told me off in front of the Konoha 11. You are worse than trash. You are scum. The reaction was instant. Even Akamaru was shocked. And at that moment, they knew. The dead last, the demon of Konoha, Kakashi's former student whom he had all but written off as worthless and abandoned in the aftermath of the Uchiha retrieval mission, was the Emperor of the Unified West. The same person who had taken down the majority of the Konoha 11, as well as several high-ranking Junin, and earned the nickname Akatsuki Killer for his actions which had brought about their destruction in the Suna Akatsuki War. The hair was reddish and the whiskers were gone, but there was no mistaking his identity. No freaking way, Kiba whispered. It can't be. Ino gasped. Quote. Shino was silent, but despite everything, he was in the same state as his comrades. His former teammate, labeled as a S-class missing ninja, was the wife of the banished Kyuubi Jinchūriki. Naruto. Kakashi whispered. Then his eyes widened in horror as he came to a realization. Oh, my god. Sensei, your son, what have I done? The one and only, Naruto replied. I am the Emperor of the Unified West, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. And I am the Empress Consort, Hinata Namikaze. Hinata finished. Only one thought was going through the Konoha team's minds, save for Shikamaru. Oh, shit. Snafu's notes. After this chapter, I'll be out on vacation with the family. The reason why this story has been updated at such a pace was that the first few chapters had already been written. This is the last pre-written chapter I have. The story will continue once I return. Be extremely subtle, to the point of formlessness. Be extremely mysterious, even to the point of soundlessness. Thereby you can be the director of the opponent's fate. All warfare is based on deception. Sun Tzu, The Art of War. Imperial Complex, Hall of Sovereigns, Throne Room. For the teams sent by the Konoha Council, this was not what they were expecting. The Emperor himself, the one who had decimated the Akatsuki in the Suna Akatsuki War, as well as defeated the majority of the Konoha 11, several elite Junin and several clan heads, was their former teammate, the dead last who once proclaimed that he would one day be Hokage, but was banished from the leaf in the aftermath of the Uchiha retrieval mission. And his wife, the former heiress of the Hyuga clan, once deemed worthless because she did not meet the standards of her clan, forsaken by her father, now an S-class missing ninja with a kill-on-sight order for her actions in crippling the Hyuga clan head, was now the wife of the emperor, herself being the most powerful woman on the continent, second only to her husband. Both were written off as worthless, and yet, they were the emperor and empress consort of the unified West. But that was not what scared the ninja present, save for Shikamaru. Those present who had gone to Suna to aid Gaara in the Suna Akatsuki War saw the carnage that was left in the aftermath of that short, but deadly war which led to the Akatsuki's destruction. 50,000 soldiers from the Imperial Defense Force, as well as 6 jinchūriki, and from the look of things, one freed-tailed beast had saved Suna from destruction. But that was just a fraction of what Naruto could muster, this Shikamaru knew. Naruto held plenty of ill will towards Konoha, but he was not Orochimaru. Naruto could have taken the Jirkas route, and unleashed hell upon Konoha. The ensuing invasion would have made the Sand Sound invasion look like a backyard brawl. But he didn't. Naruto had freed himself of his past, and made a new life for himself, leaving Konoha in the dust. Seated on their thrones, Naruto and Hinata Namikaze looked down at the cowering Konoha ninja with contempt. Hinata kept her emotions under control, her face neutral, but her eyes showed anger. Naruto, on the other hand, was outright furious. Blue eyes scanned the gathered ninjas set before him, at the people who had dared to infiltrate his home. He knew the truth about his banishment, but that still didn't get the shinobi clans off the hook. There was his former sensei, the aloof Kakashi Hatake. The last time he had seen him was back in Hot Water Country, along with Kiba Inuzuka and the Inuzuka matriarch. Besides Sasuke Uchiha, Naruto hated his former sensei with a passion. In his eyes, Kakashi was a hypocrite, plain and simple. He once preached friendship, that those who broke the rules were trash, and those who abandoned their fellow ninja were worse than trash. Then he went back on his saying, abandoning him to train Sasuke. Kakashi was even the first to turn his back on him when the banishment order came down from the Konoha Council calling Naruto scum. Tsukumo Hatake would be rolling over in his grave if he had seen how his son had ended up. Speaking of Kiba, he was standing next to Kakashi. The feral Inuzuka and his giant dog looked like they were about to piss on themselves. Always charging in headfirst without getting the entire story. Just like the rest of his family. Then again, growing up, Naruto was just the same. Like Kakashi, the Inuzuka clan was the first to turn their backs on him, including Hana. For that, the Inuzuka clan, Kiba included, were ranked high on Naruto's shit list. Which was why Naruto took great pleasure in beating down both Kiba and Tsume back in Hot Water Country. Ino was just as bad as Sakura. Almost, anyway. Shikamaru had told him about Sakura's actions which led to her ninja registration being revoked, and Ino declared the official apprentice under Tsunade. At least she wasn't screaming for his head when the banishment orders came down. She had matured in the 8 years following his banishment, even outgrowing her childish crush over the Uchiha, but Naruto still remembered that day that she chose to support his banishment. Kurenai Uehi Sarutobi, the Genjutsu mistress and captain of the now disbanded Cell 8, he had no problem with. Then again, he hardly knew her. But even Naruto knew that she would look down on him with disgust, as if he was the Nine Tails reincarnated. Just as blind and pathetic as the rest. Hinata, however, still respected her former sensei a great deal, and since she was of the Sarutobi clan by marriage to Asuma, decided to show a bit of leniency. Shino Aburame was kind of difficult to read, but was just like the rest. Even during their days in the academy, the bug user would keep his distance, as if he was afraid. Shikamaru was doing a pretty good job of acting shocked upon seeing him. After all, no one would suspect the slacker of the Konoha 11 to act as an inside man for Naruto and Hinata. He would most definitely have words with the shadow user later. Katami, on the other hand, watched the Konoha ninja squirm from her place beside Naruto's throne. The Nine Tails was grinning maniacally at the sight. But first things first. Kakashi was outright shocked at the newest revelation. Naruto was not the Nine Tails reborn. He was the son of Minato Namikaze. Oh, God. Sensei, your son. Kakashi thought, his mind going back to all those times that he had neglected Naruto's training in favor of Sasuke. It was true as they say, the past always catches up with you. Or in cruder terms, karma's a bitch, and she's back in heat. Kakashi slowly went down to one knee. Ino, Shino, Shikamaru, Kurenai, and Kiba followed suit. Even Akamaru bowed low, whining softly. Despite this revelation, they had a mission to complete. The gray-haired ninja knew that if there was a chance of his and Kurenai's former students assisting Konoha, then it would come at a heavy price. Minato-sensei. I am so sorry for what I have done to your son, Kakashi thought. Your Imperial Majesty. Your Imperial Highness. Kakashi began, swallowing audibly. Accept our sincere apologies for our intrusion into your lands. But we have come seeking your counsel on a matter of great importance. Then speak quickly, Hitaki, Hinata ordered, looking as every bit as the Empress consort she was meant to be. Had Hinata and her father had been on better terms, he would have been proud of her. Konoha is facing certain destruction from Oto, Kumo and Iwa, Kakashi explained. Konoha has no allies to come to her aid, and should we go to war, then Konoha will be destroyed. We have come as representatives of the Konoha High Council and the Godime Hokage to ask for military aid. Were you to ally with the Leaf, not only do we stand a chance of surviving, but the war could end in a truce before it can begin. The council can pay any price you name. Please, your Imperial Majesty, help the Leaf. Naruto could hear the desperation in Kakashi's voice. But he was not moved. He knew that the Konoha Civilian Council only agreed to this just to save their own. Answer me this, Kakashi Hitaki, Naruto rebuked as he rose from his throne and descended the steps, stopping in front of the man he despised. What can my country gain in the long run, should I agree to assist Konoha? Please, answer me that, sensei. He finished, his voice laced with venom as he spat out Kakashi's former title as if it was bile. If looks could kill, then Kakashi would have been a pile of ash. If Itachi was still alive, then Kakashi would rather deal with him instead of his former student. Fortunately, Kurenai made the save. Sire, an alliance between the Leaf and your Imperial Empire would improve the ways of life between us. Also, the Fire Daimyo would be interested in an alliance between you and Fire Country. Nice try, sensei, Hinata thought. Unknown to the gathered ninja, Shikamaru included, the unified West was in contact with the Fire Lord, as well as knowing of Orochimaru's intentions to raze Konoha to the ground. Is that what you think, Kurenai Sarutobi? Naruto drew. Sire, I. This time, it was Hinata that had cut her former sensei off, addressing Kakashi. Do you know what my husband and I see, Captain Hitaki? She sneered, her voice laced with venom as Naruto returned to his throne. A group of ninja from a dead-end village, begging for salvation in the face of their destruction. A village who had chosen a potential traitor over a hero. The ninja from Konoha winced. They knew that they were right. Naruto continued the verbal assault. I see a group of ninja who want me to waste not only my time, but also my resources and my military on an impending war which does not concern me in any shape, form or fashion. The same village that has abused me, spat upon me, and scorned me ever since I was born. The Yondaime, my father, wished the village to see me as a hero. Instead, you treated me like I was the fox reborn. The same village, that not only betrayed me, but banished me for doing my duty. At that, even Katami winced from the anger that her former vessel was venting. Even she knew that the kid would not forgive Konoha for not only favoring the last Uchiha, but for banishing him, and that anger had festered and burned inside for so many years. Now it was being purged. Aside from the late Sandaime, my wife is one of the select few in that entire village who did not turn their backs on me. Aside from the both of them, I can count on my fingers the number of people who did not see me as the Nine Tails incarnate. Sarutobi and his two friends. Tuki and Ayame. They did not abandon me when my so-called friends needed me the most. They saw me not as the jinchūriki, but as a real person, unlike the rest of you. All of Konoha from the civilians to the clans left me at my most vulnerable point, but they remained loyal. Only 5 people out of the whole village treated me like a human being. Naruto was silent for a moment, while the Konoha envoy lowered their heads in shame. They knew that he was right. He had given them his all, blood, sweat and tears, and was still looked down. It was at that moment that Naruto passed judgment. Your request for aid is denied. No. Ino shouted, rising to her feet. Naruto. Hinata, please. Konoha is going to be destroyed. It's your home. You have to defend it. Defend it from what? Civilians who think that they can interfere in shinobi matters. Hinata shot back. From people who celebrate the sacrifice Yondaime made by trying to kill his legacy for something that was not even his fault. Or from certain shinobi clans who forsake their own children for their own political standing in the village. After what they had done to Naruto and after what my clan had done to me, Konoha had stopped being our home. This is our home now. Tears were now in Ino's eyes. What Hinata had said was true. Hinata had all but forsaken her clan, but Naruto had gotten the worst of the raw deal. Both were loyal Konoha shinobi, only to get hosed by the village. Naruto continued after his wife. The unified West will not aid Konoha in your little war. This is a mess of your own creation. You should have destroyed Orochimaru when you had the chance. Take comfort that we will not destroy your village, despite the fact that you deserve it, but we will not save you from your own destruction either. However, you will be punished for your trespassing into our beloved home. With a snap of his fingers, the 10 Hellcats entered the throne room. Take them to the palace dungeons, Naruto ordered. For your trespassing in my domain, you will stay there for the night. In the morning, you will be taken back to the port, where you will be sent back east. Make sure you place Captain Sarutobi and Junin Nara in a separate cell from the others, Hinata added. Just to make sure that they don't try anything rash. As the Hellcats grabbed each of the Konoha ninja, Naruto turned to the Hellcats. Get them out of here. Not one of the Konoha ninja offered any resistance as they were escorted out of the throne room. Not even Akamaru. Once they were gone, Naruto slumped into his throne. Despite having planned for an encounter with the former Konoha ninja, it still took a lot out of him. Yukie, having watched the encounter from the side door, entered the throne room. Naruto, are you okay? The spring daimyo asked, concerned for her friend. Naruto sighed. Honestly, I don't know if I should play the unsung hero or the idiot. Hinata and I had planned on something like this, but seeing them after all this time. I know, Hinata replied, gently grasping her husband's hand. It was hard for me too. Are you still considering helping the Leaf? Yukie asked. Naruto shook his head. No. Our decision is final on the matter. Hinata and I will grant the Konoha clans and the ninja who support Tsunade Asylum, crippling its shinobi forces, while the Fire Lord will finish the job. Yukie nodded. Naruto and Hinata had told her the circumstances regarding Naruto's banishment, and she fully supported the royal couple's plans in crippling Konoha. Katami, send for Shikamaru Nara and Kurenai Sarutobi after Naruto calms down, Hinata ordered. And incapacitate the others so that they do not know. I can use a genjutsu to make them fall asleep, Katami suggested. That way no one will be none the wiser. Naruto nodded. See to it. Underscore. Imperial Dungeons, hours later. Dark, dank and dreary. That's what the Imperial Dungeons looked like. It was used mostly by Rokubungi Oda as a torture chamber. Now, it was used to house prisoners facing execution for capital offenses, such as treason, mostly from remnants of Rokubungi Oda's forces, or those who tried to the emperor and empress consort. In short, Zabuza, who also served as the empire's chief executioner, had plenty to do. So long as there were those who opposed the emperor's rule, he would use his oversized sword to deliver swift justice to those who threatened his boss and his wife. Hours had passed since the emperor and empress consort's judgment, and the Konoha ninja were forced to face facts. The emperor was not only the son of Konoha's Yellow Flash, but he had flat-out refused to help in the inevitable war which would ultimately lead to Konoha's destruction, and that the empress consort was the former Hyuga heiress. No one spoke, since none could get over Naruto's cold words which were spoken to them. The unified West will not aid Konoha in your little war. This is a mess of your own creation. You should have destroyed Orochimaru when you had the chance. Take comfort that we will not destroy your village, despite the fact that you deserve it, but we will not save you from your own destruction either. It also gave the Konoha prisoners time to reflect on their mistakes. In one cell were Shikamaru and Kurenai. Next to them were Ino, Shino, Kakashi Kiba and Akamaru. Down the corridor, one of the prisoners was screaming bloody murder, cursing the emperor for killing Oda and stealing his land. In the first cell, Ino was hugging her knees. Kiba was punching the wall, muttering, "Stupid, stupid, stupid," to himself with each punch. Shino was slumped against the wall opposite Ino. Akamaru was on the ground, whining softly. Kakashi was pacing the cell, berating himself over his actions as sensei of Cell 7. In the second cell, Shikamaru simply sat on the cot, arms folded while Kurenai was brooding. Troublesome, Kurenai-sensei, Shikamaru muttered. Very troublesome. Kurenai smiled sadly. Hinata always had a soft spot for Naruto. Leave it to him to stick to Hiashi. Even during the Chunin exams in Suna, he supported her, especially during her fight with Neji. Despite everything, I'm proud of her. Naruto had succeeded where Hayashi had failed. He broke her out of her shell and saw her worth. You have no idea, sensei, Shikamaru said, remembering that Hinata had fought alongside Naruto in the Suna Akatsuki War. Then again, Naruto has once again proven to be the most unpredictable ninja, Kurenai finished. She wondered what would be the Hyuga clan's reactions once they found out that Hinata was the most powerful woman in the unified West. She snorted. Emperor's whore. If Hiashi was on better terms with Hinata, he would have been jumping for joy that Hinata is married to the most powerful man on the continent. From the cell next door, Kakashi had heard Kurenai's comment. I'm so stupid. Why didn't I see this sooner? He was Minato's son, he lamented. Why didn't anyone tell us? I think both Sarutobi and Jiraiya knew, Kurenai said, speaking of her deceased father-in-law and the missing Toad Sage. In the back of her mind, she wondered whether or not Asuma knew. She would have words with her husband once they returned to Konoha. If everyone found out that Naruto was the son of the village hero, then the roles would have been reversed, Shino said. He would have been the village prince, rather than Sasuke. It's the most logical conclusion that in Konoha, the name that people will respect is Namikaze. Naruto would have been pampered, while Sasuke, despite having the Sharingan, would have nothing. Maybe it's better this way. And it's our fault that he ended up this way, Ino sniffed. We all thought that he was the Nine Tails reborn. We drove him away because of our fear. Kakashi sighed as he sat down on the cot. I underestimated him. I always tell them to look underneath the hidden meanings, yet I did not take my own advice. He unified the West in such a short time and brought about a peace not seen since the time of the Six Paths. Out of everyone here, he probably hates me the most. Kurenai smiled sadly. I know. And the people love him. He would have made a great Hokage if the council hadn't screwed him over. From what I've heard, he has the Nine Tails and the remaining jinchūriki under his command, Shino pointed. The people and his soldiers are ready to die for both him and Hinata. Ino nodded. Loyalty. Something that we all lacked. We favored Sasuke and banished a hero. Kiba, having finished venting out his frustrations, slumped down next to Ino, who began to work on his bloodied hands. Tell me about it. We all got up big time by kissing the Uchihas. The memory of his encounter with the Nine Tails was still fresh in his mind. Naruto never quit. Even when we fought in the Chunin exams, he never quit. Even when Orochimaru screwed up his chakra, he never gave up. He fought on. He remembered the 3-on-1 confrontation with the Emperor in Hot Water Country. I think it's safe to say that he has surpassed all of us. Some friend I was. Underscore. Outside in the dungeon's corridors, General Kazuma and Katami appeared. Masking their chakra so that they could not be identified, they stood before the cell containing the 4 Konoha ninja and 1 massive dog. Katami went through several hand signs while whispering, Kitsune style, gentle sleep. Within seconds, Kakashi, Ino, Kiba, Shino and Akamaru were out like a light. Once they made sure that they were asleep, Katami turned to Kazuma. Bring the slacker and Sarutobi to the visitor's room, she said before departing. Yes, Lady Akashiya, Kazuma replied. Motioning to the jailer, he ordered him to open the cell containing Kurenai and Shikamaru. Underscore. The turning of the lock made both Kurenai and Shikamaru jump. Then the door opened and Kazuma was standing in the doorway. Shikamaru Nara and Kurenai Sarutobi? Kazuma asked. Yes. Kurenai replied while Shikamaru nodded. Come with me. The Emperor and Empress Consort will see the both of you now. Wait, what about Captain Hitaki and the others? Kurenai asked. Kazuma shook his head. Sorry. Only you two. Please come with me. Underscore. Hall of Sovereigns, Visitor's Room. Kurenai and Shikamaru were escorted to the visitor's room inside the Hall of Sovereigns by Kazuma and were told to wait. After Kazuma left via the shadows, Naruto and Hinata had made their appearance. How have you been, Shikamaru? Naruto asked as he approached the lazy Nara. Good, despite everything. You. Shikamaru replied, just as Kurenai's eyes went wide as the realization had struck her. Same, Naruto replied as the two men shook hands. Kurenai was on Shikamaru in an instant. You knew. You knew that Naruto and Hinata were the Emperor and Empress. She shouted. Why didn't you tell Asuma? Or your teammates? He did, as did Granny Tsunade, Naruto replied. They both found out shortly after the Akatsuki were destroyed in Suna. As to why Shikamaru did not tell them, both Granny and myself asked him not to. Ino's gossip and word would have reached Danzo and the others. I wanted your reactions to be genuine and honest. Kurenai looked like she was on the receiving end of the 1,000 years of pain. But she quickly gathered her wits. It was you who had taken Hinata during the Suna Chunin exams. She asked Naruto. The Emperor nodded. It was me. I also freed her from that damned seal. You definitely succeeded on that, Kurenai replied. Hiyashi was very upset when he found out that you removed the caged bird seal off of Hinata. She turned to her former student. Look at you. Empress consort to the Emperor. Congratulations, Hinata. I always had faith in you. Hinata smiled. Thanks, sensei. The red-eyed woman smiled back. Then she looked at the ring on Hinata's finger. Married. The former Hyuga nodded. 2 years. One of the conditions I set for her was to become a better ninja. Katami and I trained her. I wanted an empress who can carry herself on the battlefield, rather than some spoiled, pampered wives of the daimyos back east. Too bad Hayashi didn't see it that way, Kurenai said, remembering how Hinata had crippled her former father back in Wave Country. She then turned to Naruto. How long has Shikamaru been your inside man? Since the Suna Akatsuki War, Naruto replied. My spy network back east was the one who passed on news of Orochimaru's planned attack on Konoha to Shikamaru, who in turn told Granny. After all, no one would suspect the slacker of being an informant. So you already know about the invasion, Kurenai said. Naruto nodded. And my answer still stands, Sarutobi. I will not help Konoha. But, why? And Naruto told her. About the conspiracy which ultimately led to his exile, as well as the conspirators responsible. Shikamaru, who had told Naruto and Hinata the plot in the first place, had all but confirmed it. Kurenai did not know whether or not that extended to Hitomi, but knowing Danzo, it probably did, as she was part of the Sarutobi clan by marriage. She may be a Konoha Junin, but her loyalty was to her daughter overall. So let me get this straight. Asuna Haruno bribed the civilian side of the council to vote for the banishment, while Danzo threatened the shinobi clan heads to vote for the banishment or else their children would be turned into living weapons for his root. Kurenai surmised. Shikamaru nodded. In a nutshell, yeah. Now you see why Hinata and I refused to aid Konoha, Naruto said. But I still have a grudge with Orochimaru, as he was the one who killed old man Sarutobi. Which is why Hinata and I have decided on a course of action that will destroy Orochimaru's war machine, and at the same time, cripple Konoha. By the time you and the others return to Konoha, we will have executed Susanoo's wrath, Hinata continued. After giving Kurenai a brief explanation of the plan, she turned to Shikamaru. By that time, Iwa and Kumo will try to kill each other, while at the same time, Orochimaru will be caught in the crossfire. By destroying his fragile alliances with the Cloud and the Stone, Orochimaru can't invade Konoha. That's where you come in, Shikamaru, Naruto said. Once it's known that Orochimaru won't be able to attack Konoha, you will tell Tsunade to resign her post as Hokage. More than likely, it will come down to either Hayashi or Danzo who will become the Rokudaime Hokage. By that time, I will have notified the Fire Lord and he will pass judgment on Konoha. And that is. Kurenai prodded. Half of the shinobi support Tsunade, including the clan heads, save for the Hyuga, as well as a sizable number of Chunin and Junin, Hinata said. The second half of Susanoo's wrath is a mass evacuation, or exodus, if you will, of the major clans and shinobi. They will head to Wave Country, where they will be evacuated here. But half of Konoha's ninja force supports Tsunade, Kurenai replied. Then it dawned on her. By allowing the clans and more than half of the Chunin and Junin asylum, Konoha's shinobi forces will be irreversibly crippled. Combined with the egos of Haruno, Kaharu, Hanmura, Danzo and Hiyashi, Konoha will self-destruct. Naruto nodded. Correct. What about Hitaki? Kurenai asked. Naruto's mood darkened. I have lost all respect for him. Made the beatdown I gave to him even sweeter. He favored Sasuke, even after I brought his prized student back, not taking notice of the Chidori wound in my chest. What my dad saw in him I will never know. But still, this puts a new light on why you were banished, Kurenai said. I know what you're going to say, sensei, Hinata cut in. But we can't expose Danzo. The corruption in Konoha is too deep. After Minato's death, the council has taken too much power, leaving the post of Hokage as a figurehead. But is there no other way? Kurenai asked. Naruto shrugged his shoulders. The other option is that I personally decimate the shinobi forces inside Konoha and let Katami raze the place to the ground. I chose the lesser evil. The idea of offering the clan heads asylum was Hinata's idea. Kurenai gulped. Given how Naruto had unified the countries, beaten down the majority of Konoha's elite and decimated the Akatsuki, he could just as easily back his threat up. Sighing, Kurenai nodded. I understand. Kurenai, I must ask that you not reveal what we have said to anyone, Naruto said. If Danzo or anyone here finds out what I have planned, then the game is up. You and the others can tell them that I am the Emperor and Hinata is my wife. But other than that, I will not aid Konoha. He stood up, and Hinata followed suit. This meeting is now over. You have your orders, Shikamaru. Make sure Tsunade knows her part once you return to Konoha. Shikamaru nodded, just as Kazuma emerged from the shadows. Take them back to their cells, Naruto ordered. The Shadow Company commander nodded and did his duty. Morning came over the imperial capital. The 5 Konoha Junin and 1 massive dog were released from their overnight imprisonment. Upon seeing daylight, they saw Katami waiting for them. The Nine-Tails Prime Minister was direct and to the point. The Emperor has ordered that all of you will board the first boat at port and will be sent back east. She retrieved a scroll and handed it to one of the Hellcats. These are your orders. Class S assignment from General Ni, and the Emperor and Empress Consort. You and your squad will accompany the Konoha ninja back east, then return here. I will accompany you to the harbor. The Nine-Tails gave a fanged, feral grin which sent chills down the spines of the Konoha ninja. Not even Sume Inazuka or Anko Mitarashi was this scary. Let's go. The first boat leaves in less than an hour, Katami said. Kakashi nodded reluctantly and without any resistance. The Hellcats and their escort walked out of the dungeons. Imperial Palace. Watching from the bedroom window, Naruto watched as Katami led the Konoha ninja out of the complex. Hinata soon joined him. Now, it's up to Tsunade and the Fire Lord, Naruto mused. This is a very dangerous game we're playing, love, Hinata replied. Very dangerous. The blonde emperor nodded. I know. He looked at his watch. Come midnight, Susanoo's wrath will be executed. You seem pretty confident in Zabuza and Yugito's cells, Hinata noted. Are you sure that they will succeed? I worked and fought with them for a long time. I have faith in them. They don't know the meaning of the word, fail. That said, Naruto turned and walked back inside. Hinata stayed outside, watching the Konoha ninja until they were out of view. Inside the Pakara merchant houses in both Earth and Lightning countries, 2 sleeper cells of Zabuza Mamachi's Demon Brigade and Yugito Ni's Hellcat unit began to make the final preparations for the mission given to them by the Emperor and Empress Consort. It was an SS-class mission of the utmost importance. Naruto had personally selected the men and women involved for their specialties in Lightning Jutsu, Earth Jutsu and Genjutsu. Inside the Earth Pakara branch, the sleeper cell donned ninja uniforms identifying them as Kumo and Oto ninja, while in Lightning Pakara branch, the cell there were dressed as Iwa and Oto ninja. Their mission: prevent Konoha's destruction by causing the alliance between Orochimaru, Iwa and Kumo to fracture. They understood that it could well be a suicide mission, but that was only if they failed. And one thing about the Hellcat unit and the Demon Brigade, was they never failed. Come midnight, Operation Susanoo's Wrath was a go. As the Unification Festival reached its climax, ninja in both Kumo and Iwa began to die. In Kumo, it was ninja wearing the uniforms of both Sound and Stone, while in Iwa it was Lightning and Sound. While Naruto and Hinata mingled with the more prominent clans inside the Imperial Palace and later, with the civilians down in Kimen City, Susanoo's wrath was underway. The ninja in both Kumo and Iwa did not know what had hit them, as the sleeper cells targeted the high-ranking Junin and Chunin. The Genjutsu specialists captured several of the strongest ninjas from both sides, brainwashed them into fighting their own comrades, ultimately leading to the attempted attacks on the Tsuchikage and Raikage respectively. By dawn the next morning, Kumo and Iwa would be at war. Not with Konoha, but with each other and Oto. Meanwhile the 2 sleeper cells had silently retreated back to their respective Pakara merchant houses, and destroyed the evidence of their participation in the operation. There would be no explanation as to why both sides had attacked the other. Orochimaru's explanations would fall on deaf ears as the next battleground would be Rice and Oto itself. Not even Orochimaru could stop the inevitable invasion from 2 villages. Imperial Complex, Office of the Emperor and Empress, 2 days after the Unification Festival. The scrolls were delivered earlier that day. Both were from the Pakara branches in Lightning and Earth. Upon opening them, Naruto read them and his expression went from unreadable to that of satisfaction. Hinata had caught the expression when she entered the office. What is it? She asked. Naruto said nothing as he handed her the scrolls from Earth and Lightning countries. Soon, her expression mirrored that of her husband's own once she had verified that the scroll was genuine, as only Pekara employees used only those scrolls. Written in both scrolls were the words, Operation Susanoo's Wrath, Success. Oto is fighting a two-front battle between Iwa and Kumo. Konoha, 6 days later. On the way back to Konoha, Kakashi and the others had plenty of time to get the backstory on Naruto from one of the Hellcats, who was a veteran of the Unification Wars. Following his banishment, he had met up with Yugito Ni, who like Naruto, had been screwed over by the Kumo Council. After fleeing to Kimen City, the pair had made a name for themselves by Rokenbungi Oda and securing Kimen, before launching into his War of Unification. 1 year to conquer the northern region, and another year to conquer the southern region. Shortly afterward, he was named Emperor of the Unified West. Once he became Emperor, Naruto showed that he was a capable ruler as well as a skilled warrior. Given the fact that Yukie had filmed most of her movies in the West, it was safe to say that Naruto had made a trade alliance with Spring. And the alliance with Suna, given how Naruto had come to the aid of Gaara when the Akatsuki invaded. Not to mention how he was able to beat down most of Konoha's finest. They couldn't pin it on the fox this time around. He had gone from dead last to the most powerful man on the continent. Hearing about Naruto's exploits in the war and as emperor had crushed what little remained of the Konoha ninjas' morale. They were not looking forward to returning to Konoha to give their report to Tsunade and the council. The trip by boat took 5 days. And another day by foot to reach the Leaf. After greeting the guards at the gate, Ino and Shino returned to their respective homes, leaving Kurenai, Kakashi, Kiba and Shikamaru to make their report to the Hokage and the council. Konoha Council Chambers. The council was immediately convened upon Tsunade's request. Both Ino and Shino were still absent, as they had a lot to think about the past couple of days, leaving Shikamaru, Kakashi, Kurenai and Kiba at the mercy of the Konoha Council. The returning envoy stood before Tsunade and her advisors. The shinobi and the civilian council members were filed on either side of the council chambers. All were anticipating the news of whether or not the Western Empire would come to their aid. Well, Kaharu prodded. Did you gain an audience with the Emperor? What did he have to say? Kurenai and Kakashi exchanged glances. Then Kakashi began to speak. As ordered by the Godime Hokage, he began, his voice cracking, we infiltrated the Western Empire. However, we were captured and brought before the Emperor. This also coincides with a secondary mission given to both Captain Sarutobi and myself, find Naruto Uzumaki and see if he would return to the Leaf. At that moment, the council was in an uproar, until Tsunade called for silence. Why would you even consider allowing the demon to return to the Leaf? Asuna Haruno demanded. We banished him 8 years ago. Indeed, Danzo seconded. I for one am also concerned about this, Lady Hokage. Our decision was final in regards to the Kyuubi brat. Not even you can override the council's judgment. We are in an impending state of war, Shimura, Tsunade shot back. And since you and my advisors like to flaunt the law, allow me to repay the favor. In the event of war, the Hokage of Konoha is automatically granted unlimited emergency powers, thus even overriding the will of the Konoha Council for the sake of the village. As quoted in the Konoha Charter, the Hokage of Konoha's word is absolute, meaning that even banished ninja can safely return to Konoha and fight, in exchange for a pardon. Danzo, Kaharu and Hanmura growled internally. They knew that Tsunade was right. But they wisely kept their mouths shut. Despite the power they wielded, they still were on thin ice with the Slug Sage with their orchestrating Naruto's banishment. One wrong move and they would not survive Tsunade's wrath. As if we needed the demon to return to this village, one civilian member said. The shinobi half of the council knew better. Even they knew that the village was worse off because of Naruto. While the civilian council sang the praises of the Uchiha, Konoha had lost every single alliance and trade agreement it had gained. Even Jiraiya and his spy network, once invaluable to Konoha, was also gone. Most of the villages and nations said that unless the banishment was reversed, then they would do no business with Konoha. Even after 8 years, the council was still blind to the fact that their village was better off when Naruto was still a member of its shinobi ranks. But the shinobi council's hands were tied, as Danzo had threatened them not only to vote for the banishment of Uzumaki, but never to say a word, if they value the lives of their children. How does this coincide with the mission? Asuna asked. She then put 2 and 2 together. Wait, are you saying that the demon is in the employ of the Emperor? Kurenai shook her head. No. Naruto Uzumaki is not in the employ of the Emperor. He is the Emperor. Silence reigned throughout the council hall. Hiashi and Hanabi both looked surprised. Even Sasuke listened in interest. The same Naruto that was considered the dead last of the Rookie 11 was now the most powerful man on the Western continent. The same man that had soundly beaten most of the high-ranking Junin. It took a moment for Hiashi Hyuga to connect the dots. It was him. That damn demon took my daughter. There's more, Kurenai continued, her tone smug as she turned to Hiashi. We also came into contact with former Konoha Chunin Hinata Hyuga. And you did nothing. Hiashi sneered. You know she is in the bingo book, Sarutobi. You always did have a bleeding heart for that disgrace. Of course I did nothing, Kurenai replied. That disgrace, as you call her, is Naruto's wife, making her the Empress consort. Attacking her would, in effect, bring upon the wrath of the Empire down on us all. From her seat on the council, Tsunade mentally counted down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and. As expected, bedlam ensued. We are saved. A second civilian member shouted. That Kyuubi brat will do anything to come back to Konoha. All we have to do is stroke his ego and tell him that he can come back. When the war is over, we can throw him out again. This time, it was Kiba who spoke up. No. You're wrong. We were all wrong. How so? Sume Inuzuka asked. Naruto and the Nine Tails are completely separate entities, Kiba explained, remembering the team's confrontation with the humanized fox. Kakashi nodded, confirming Kiba's testimony. It's true. He then told the council of their encounter with the Nine Tails, followed by their meeting with the former ninja-turned-emperor. As Danzo listened on, he was seething. Bitter irony that he once tried to make Naruto into an ultimate weapon for Konoha, but had failed when Hiruzen Sarutobi denied him the chance. In a twist of fate, Naruto had become a weapon, the ultimate weapon of the unified West. That damned Kyuubi brat. I knew that banishing him was a bad idea. The old Warhawk ranted. He is even stronger than his father. Not even the Uchiha could beat him. And he's the Emperor of the West. That position should be mine. Such power would be useful in controlling all of the countries. Too bad that Naruto would more than likely have him and his route executed should he try anything funny. If the boy is the Emperor, then we are saved. One fat cat from the civilian side shouted, interrupting Kakashi. That is until Kakashi dropped the bombshell. He has denied our pleas for assistance in the war with Oto, Iwa and Kumo, the copycat ninja deadpanned. His hatred of the leaf runs deep. We have betrayed him in his darkest hour, because we were blind to the facts. We all thought that he was the Kyuubi in human form. Minato would be turning over in his grave if he saw what this village has done to his child. Wait, are you saying? Sume began, her face going pale. Tsunade spoke for him, her voice grim. Yes. The council, in its ignorance, has banished the son of Minato Namikaze, and his wife, former Whirlpool ruler Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze, who in turn, is related to my grandfather, Harashima Senju, and my granduncle, Tobarama Senju, the Shidaimon Nadaime Hokages, as well as myself. Yes, the Senju clan is related to the Uzumaki clan, formerly of Whirlpool. Noble blood runs through Naruto's veins. The shinobi side of the council looked ill, while the civilian side erupted in shouts of denial. Impossible. The boy can't be the sole survivor of the Namikaze clan. It has to be another of the demon's tricks. Enough. Tsunade shouted, silencing the civilian council. This has gone on long enough. It is because of the influence of the civilian council that we banished the son of the village hero. This is a shinobi village, and civilians have no say in ninja matters. Therefore, I am dissolving the civilian council until further notice. Her voice rose over the objections. If you do not like my decree, then maybe a visit to Ibiki and Anko will change your mind. At that, the civilians effectively snapped their mouths shut. One thing for certain, the civilians were completely scared of the chief interrogator and his assistant. Silently, one by one, they walked out of the chambers. Once the civilians were gone, another round of talks began. Surely there is something that we can offer the boy in exchange for his aid in this war, Hanmura said, grasping for straws. Shikaku shook his head. What can we offer him? The position of Hokage. He is the Emperor of the West. A pardon and his name cleared. Or maybe an apology for how he was treated over the years. Or maybe a rank to Junin. Not even that would interest him. If anything, from his exploits and his track record, he is stronger than the last 4 Hokages combined. If what Captain Sarutobi and Captain Hitaki speak are indeed true, then we can forget about having Yondaimi's legacy helping us. He sighed. Minato would be rolling over in his grave as to what we have done to his son. So what? Shuza Akamaiki butted in. That leaves us with 2 choices. Either we give in to their demands of handing over Sasuke Uchiha, the Hyuga heiress, recognizing it as a major shinobi nation and stepping down, and handing over the forbidden scroll of sealing, the latter of which we do not have. Or Konoha makes its last stand, Danzo deadpanned. I must admit that banishing the boy was good for the leaf at the time, but now, we face destruction. Destruction because of your own stupidity, Tsunade thought crossly. Turning to Shikamaru, Kurenai, Kakashi and Kiba, she dismissed them and remained behind as the Shinobi Council continued to argue over what to do next. No one noticed Sasuke Uchiha leave the room shortly after the Konoha envoy. Finally, Tsunade got tired of all the arguing and dismissed the clans for the day. Konoha, Market Square. Shikamaru made his way to the Pakara merchant stand, where Meiki Asashina and her fellow merchants were busy hawking their wares and exotic materials from the unified West. The lazy Nara immediately identified Meiki by her crimson flak vest and katana, and made his way over to her. Meiki saw him coming. Before leaving the fire capital, she had received word of the attack via a fox summon from Hinata. Ah, Shikamaru, she greeted. Retrieving a package from underneath the stand, she handed it over to the pineapple-headed slacker. Leaning in, she whispered into his ear. To anyone else, it looked like she was flirting with him. But Shikamaru knew better. I bring words from the unified West and from the Emperor, she whispered. Susanoo's wrath is a success. Tell your Hokage to begin the next phase of the plan once word reaches here that Orochimaru will not invade. Troublesome, Shikamaru replied, but rushed off back to the Hokage tower. Training ground number 3. Sasuke found Kakashi at the old training grounds. The gray-haired Junin stood near a post, lost in his thoughts. But he knew that the Uchiha was there. Sasuke remembered this spot as well, as this was the location of their bell test. The post was the same that Naruto had been tied to in his youth. I thought you might be here, Sasuke said. Kakashi remained silent. So it's true. About the dove being emperor. When Kakashi nodded, Sasuke continued on. Yes, I can't actually call him done anymore. Given how he managed to unify the western continent, as well as beat down most of the Konoha Junin. Should have known that he had on a mask. Not that I blame him. He walked over to the post and placed one hand on the wooden beam. A sardonic smile crept across the Uchiha's lips. I remember the bell test you made us take after we made Genin. Naruto was tied to this very post when we failed to get a bell off of you. He sighed. All of this is my fault. If I hadn't tried to defect to Orochimaru, then none of this would have happened. Naruto should not have been banished for my crimes. If anything, I should have been the one walking out of that gate. In the 8 years following Naruto's banishment, Sasuke had changed for the better, surprisingly. Despite the fact that it had cost him the trust of the shinobi clans of Konoha, Sasuke had trained harder than ever once he was fully recovered. It had taken Naruto's banishment to see that his obsession with vengeance had ultimately caused the destruction of Cell 7. He had distanced himself from Kakashi and Sakura as a result, and hardly spoke to Sakura for the next several years. Until 3 years ago, he received a marriage proposal from Asuna Haruno. Since Sasuke needed to rebuild the Uchiha, she was offering Sakura's hand in marriage. Sasuke blanched at the proposal. He would rather spend time in the forest of death with the critters than to be married to the pink-haired banshee. Speaking of which, is it true? That demon is the Emperor of the West. Sasuke and Kakashi winced as Sakura Haruno stormed in their direction. The disgraced Chunin was now being groomed to take over her mother's mercantile business, which had taken quite a hit with the rise of the Pakara merchant houses. Ever since having lost her shinobi status, Sakura had focused her attention into seducing Sasuke, with no success, and running the day-to-day operations of her family's business. It's true, all right, Kakashi confirmed. Naruto is the Emperor of the West. Sakura folded her arms across her chest. It's a lie. You've probably been fooled, Hitaki. You know as well as I do that Naruto can use shadow clones. There's a meeting at my mother's home. The civilian council which Tsunade had ejected are talking about sanctions against the Pakara merchant house, as well as summoning Naruto back to face trial. There's a problem with that, Sakura, Sasuke pointed out. Since the civilian council forgot, let me remind you. The Fire Lord himself personally intervened, saying that no one is to make a move against Uzumaki under any circumstances. Since he is the Emperor of the West, he is now protected by diplomatic immunity, as his Hinata. We will attack any of them, and Orochimaru will be the least of our worries. Sakura snorted. As if that dead list can do anything. He loves Konoha too much to raise a sword against it. Kakashi shook his head. People do change when you haven't seen them in almost a decade. Naruto and the Nine Tails are not one and the same. I should not have doubted Minato-sensei's sealing abilities. He sealed the Nine Tails inside Naruto's body in order to save Konoha. The nine-tailed fox is a woman. A very hot woman, despite the tails and demonic chakra. Whatever, Sakura replied. Mom and the more prominent members of the civilian council are filing an injunction against Naruto, denouncing him and Hinata as traitors to the Leaf, as well as denying him as the son of Minato Namikaze. The second injunction is aimed at T-Country, demanding that they hand over the demon's wealth immediately, or else they will find themselves suffering from a trade embargo with the Leaf. Good luck with that, Kakashi snorted. T-Country's on friendly terms with the unified West. So threatening them would be moot at best. You haven't seen what kind of damage that Naruto can do, Sakura. Sasuke and I have. We've seen the aftermath of the Akatsuki invasion, and given the fact that his army are battle-hardened samurai and ninja, they can easily overrun Konoha and destroy it. Sakura snorted again and walked off. At a ninja-only bar and grill. Ino and Shino had just finished telling the other members of the Konoha 11 and several high-ranking Junin the news. They did not take it very well. Most of them had assumed that Naruto and the Nine Tails were one and the same. But after Ino had told them what had happened and with Shino backing her up, they knew that they screwed up big time. What was even more shocking, as Neji had pointed out, was that Naruto had fought and beaten most of the Konoha 11, several elite Junin and clan heads following the deaths of Hidan and Kazuku. On top of that, he was the architect behind the destruction of the Akatsuki, as well as retrieving the surviving jinchūriki and allowing them to live in the West. Well, shit, Anko Mitarashi said. I always knew that kid wasn't the Nine Tails. If he was, then Orochimaru would have long since been pissing on this town's ashes. If Iruka was still alive, he would have been proud of him. We have done a very unyouthful thing in condemning Naruto, Rock Lee lamented. We all thought he was the Fox Reborn. But to have united the Western lands in such a short time and bring about peace to the war-torn lands. Maida Guy nodded. Indeed, my youthful student. He has proven to have both the will of fire, as well as the flames of youth burn brightly in him. Can't believe we all fought him, and lost, Tenten said as she poked at her lunch, having lost her appetite. Guess it shows that we all became complacent in our abilities. Looks like Naruto had never stopped training, since he could just as easily wipe out Konoha without missing a beat. Neji Hyuga had taken the news the hardest. I'm such a fool. I always lived my life by fate, given the fact that I was born into the cadet branch. Naruto proved to me that one does not live by fate when we fought the first time, and I threw it back in his face when he was banished. What he told me when we fought again really had me thinking about my life, especially after Hinata had disappeared. There really is no such thing as fate, only choice. And Konoha had chosen poorly in banishing the son of the village hero. Choji's eyes went wide. You mean? Neji nodded. Yes. I overheard Hiyashi and Hanabi talking with the Hyuga Council before I came here. Naruto is the son of Minato Namikaze, and husband to Hinata, making her the empress consort to him being the emperor. The Hyuga Council has declared that Hinata's marriage to Naruto is invalid and immediately nullified and are in the process of demanding that she returns to Konoha. He scoffed. That will not happen. Hayashi has lost face to the point that he will risk the destruction of the Hyuga just to get Hinata back. Choji slumped back in his seat. And Naruto and Hinata have refused to help us. We're screwed. We are so screwed. The others couldn't help but to agree. Office of the Hokage. So Konoha has dodged a bullet. Orochimaru has his hands full with Iwa and Kumo. Tsunade asked. Yeah, Asahina verified it. Susanoo's wrath is a success, Shikamaru replied. Once it's known in Konoha that Orochimaru will not attack, you will resign your post as Hokage. The Fire Lord will do the rest. Godime nodded as she leaned back in her chair. We'll have to work fast. More than likely, it will be Danzo who will be chosen as Rokudime. Are you sure that Orochimaru and Oto will not hinder the exodus when the time comes? Naruto's spy network has been getting around-the-clock reports on the assault on Oto. Once the damage has been done, he will personally deal with the snake himself. Tsunade nodded. You're dismissed, Shikamaru. The shadow user nodded and left the room. Tsunade almost felt bad for the snake. Keyword being, almost. If Kumo and Iwa don't end up killing him, then Naruto would most definitely will, as he had to answer for killing their former master. Tsunade took out a bottle of sake and poured herself a cup. Toasting the memory of Hiruzen Sarutobi, the slug sage downed the warm liquid, and waited. Waited for the news of Orochimaru's impending demise. Until then, she would sit back and watch as Konoha went nuts with the fact that the so-called Kyuubi brat was not only the emperor of the West, but also the son of the Yondaime Hokage.